So today I am joined with Darren Bain from RightCrowd. And RightCrowd is a physical identity and access management platform. Is that more or less correct?
You know, Phil, that's exactly correct today.
Okay.
The market, it's turned into that acronym, the Physical Identity Access Management. And when we started, actually 21 years ago yesterday, we started, and I was one of the founders at the time. We really started because a company in Australia, and you can tell from my accent, although we're all North American.
I thought you were from Brooklyn.
A little south. And the company wanted us to take data from SAP, put it through some approvals and training checks, and then push it into physical security, which we knew nothing about at the time.
Right.
And of course, we didn't call it Physical Identity Access Management, but you know, through the industry, through RFPs, through various vendors that have come up, you know, in that time, it has become Physical Identity Access Management. Whether you like the acronym or not, that is what we do.
From an acronistic perspective, is it a PIAM? Is it a PIAM? Like, what's the right way to say it?
Yeah, look, I'm sure we've all played with this a million times.
Yes.
To come up with this acronym, to be honest. And I didn't come up with the acronym, but it was, you know, it's physical, because it's identity access management is that massive space that lives in, and it's 20 years more mature than what the physical space is. And we've been talking about converging with it forever, but you know, the reality is today we're really just getting to that point through the fact that we've got things like mobile credentials we're going to talk about today. That helps drive, because credentials have logical aspects and physical aspects that the card sort of does if you get the right equipment, but the credential just easily, naturally does that. So it's helping bring those two worlds together. But you know, the ultimate way they really wanted to do it was physical and then identity access management. So really follow that line. And that's where it came. And at the end of the day, what we bring to the table and what we solve is the thing that, it's kind of the dirty laundry for a lot of companies, that like a biometric company or a mobile credential company, you don't want to reach out to Workday and SAP and PeopleSoft and all the contractor systems. You don't want to do all that stuff because it's hard work.
Right.
I'll attest to that. But that's what we do, and we wrap ourselves around the physical security systems to ensure that we can take the identity, we can do exactly what we did more than 21 years ago for that company, and then we can massage the data and then push it into physical security compliantly, safely, securely, and that's really what the physical part of the process is. We have a customer who is a very large customer, and the director said to me one day, not so long, he doesn't work there anymore, but he said, you know, Darren, you need to realise that what you guys do, this PIAM, it's a service to the end of the HR and identity process, where all that's very mature. You know, HR do all of their onboarding and identity management systems, the IT systems are quite mature, but physical's been left in the backwater for a long time, where it's like, hey, Mr. Guard, hey, this is a new employee, give him a badge. Like, and it's not compliant, and it's not very well, you know, there's no process around it. So that's really what we bring to the table as a PIAM vendor.
Who really is the right customer for a system like yours? Because I think like the run-of-the-mill security system, 8 doors, 16 doors, a couple hundred users, that's probably not the right customer. So who should be thinking about a physical identity and access management system as part of their physical implementation?
You know, I was watching Willy Wonka the other week with my little children, and the Charlie obviously gets the golden ticket. Now, in the early days, the only customers we had were golden tickets. If you looked at our revenue, it was like, and then bump, massive bump.
Right.
Massive bump. Because the big, massive companies, like BHP was where we really started, which is a big mining conglomerate, they realized that if they could just cut like 1% of their costs by automating this whole physical process and putting compliance around it, or safety was the big thing for them,
sure,
then they could save a mozza. They could save way more than that, you know, and just by putting that in, they could do that. So we could only really do it with the companies who sort of had either, like at the time, commodities were going great, so they had a lot of money to spend, so they'd try and save money wherever they could. And it was only the really, really big customers, which are really hard to deal with, that we really started with. But our ICP today really says 10,000, and then look, that's just a number that we start with the line, 10,000 people or more. Because until then, it's kind of, you know, you can kind of do it manually, you can kind of deal with it. Look, we often deal with 5s and 3s and things like that, but 10,000 is a baseline. Ideally, they have compliance issues like a NERC SIP or, you know, some other OSHA thing or whatever. They might have, they also have safety concerns. That's really where we grew up. But, safety is across all industries nowadays. You've got to watch the safety video before you can get into an area as a visitor or a contractor or an employee. So all of those things come to the table, and they have to have, obviously, one or more packs, and they're physical access control systems. There's not many organisations who don't have at least one, but there's many organisations which are attractive to us, honestly, where there's a multi-packs environment. And I'll say here on recorded video that we steered away from that type of customer for quite a long time because we wanted to get it right. So we worked with customers who had one packs, and we dealt with it, and we made sure it was rock solid, and really delivered on that. And then we got ourselves into multi-packs so that we could do that multi-pack support.
The question that I have, or what you just said made me really think about how mobile credentials, especially for the wallet, have to be deployed. And when you're talking to customers that have these disparate systems, who's on Genetec, who's on Linnell, who's on Secure, and maybe it's the same customer that's on all three, how do you have this normalized process? I know that that's just a small component of what you do, but can you speak to what you do from a mobile credentialing perspective that helps the end user get to this sort of holistic implementation?
Look, Phil, you guys help us, and we help you. It's a symbiotic relationship,
Absolutely.
To be honestly truth. And the fact is, I was 35 when we started RightCrowd, so do the math. We've been here 21 years. It's taken a long time for this physical identity access management to mature from the golden tickets to where it's become a more mainstream concern. And we have, many customers now, and those customers aren't just the biggest of the biggest, and there's still many big names, but, we drill down to that next level of sort of Fortune 3000 or whatever you want to call it. So as that has really matured and grown out, the need for them to then get like a mobile credential type of process or whatever else, it's come to the table across all these types of organisations. And so because we're symbiotic, we can get the credential, you can get the credential, you can give it to a customer, but the customer has to know who is Joe Blow and then get that credential down into the physical access control systems or systems. So what we do, and what we've been doing for all those years I've just talked about, is telling that PIAM story. And we really know it. It's from the onboarding and then getting a credential organised and then getting the access you need, maybe the default access based on your role or location. And then maybe they request additional access, but all of that is governed by maybe training courses and clearances and all the things that happen. And then you get to the point where you actually have physical access to the door, and then you can muster people and all that. And we've been telling that story for a long, and I'm one of the main storytellers of that all that time. And the fact is that story it resonated up here, and then gradually it's coming down. But now we say, and at the end of that process, the customer, the end user, for that credential request, it says, click here to add to wallet. Welcome to, IBM or Acme or whoever you're working for. So they click on the thing, they add it, gets added to their wallet. It goes in easily. So we help with that because we provision the person in, and we know who they are, and we push it out and say, hey, do you want a credential? Click here to add to wallet. So then we talk to HID and we say, hey, we need a credential, and it goes through, sorts out the Origo thing, sorts out into Apple, Google Wallet, whatever it is, or Google Credential, and gets that, and then we insert it, and you guys help insert it into the wallet. Now, it's seamless to the end user at that point, and it's also seamless to the security and facilities department because they really haven't had to do anything. It's come down from PeopleSoft, Workday, whatever it is, into RightCrowd. We've organised that, and suddenly our story has this golden lining on it, which is you get this great mobile credential in your wallet. And suddenly it's solved.
And it's funny, like everybody is hung up, I think, in the security industry, and maybe I'm a little bit biased from the customers that I speak to, but because we're moving from giving somebody a physical card, here you go, here's your physical card, to, hey, here's your digital card. It's this thought process of we're switching from this physical thing to this digital thing, and yes, that's part of it, but what I think really is the driving factor is the value add that you're talking about. It's like, oh, my organization needs these specific compliance requirements, and as part of that compliance requirement, when I achieve all of those requirements, then I see the button that says add pass to wallet, and that then provides this not just wonderful user experience for the person with the phone, but now the end user organizationally can rest assured knowing that the person with the credential on their phone is worthy of having that credential on the phone. And that to me is the real value of going from a physical credential program to a mobile credential program.
I'm the end user. I've got this magical HID mobile credential it's just in my wallet. It's next to my credit card. It's next to all the other things that I have. I can present it at the door. And to your point, it's nail on the head. That's what we try and deliver for customers. And that's a story we've been telling for 21 years. And suddenly this has made it a magic story. Like it's fantastic.
So, obviously, I think you guys are having a moment right now in the physical security industry. Why do you think it's taken 21 years to get to this point?
I was talking to someone last night and they said to me it's easier to hire 2 people to help with the badging process than it is to try and think about a software system that's going to integrate to your identity system, into your packs, and have all these rules and workflows that are going to manage requests and all of the, have I not been in a certain area for a certain amount of time, or should I have this safety video, do I need to renew it? All of these things, it's easy just to hire 2 or 10 people.
Right.
Because you can fire those people and you're probably not going to get in trouble. You go and buy it, and look, PIAM is not an inexpensive
right. It ain't cheap.
acquisition. No, but at the end of the day,
for a reason, by the way.
Well, absolutely, because if you sit there, and I used to sit out at that mining customer in the middle of Australia. I nearly spent a couple of years living out there in the early days, way before RightCrowd. You'd stand there, and whether it's a mobile credential or a white badge, there was 6,000 people coming on site for a shift, and they were like, boom, 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 at all the gates. And then you had 10 guards in the guard station. I'd stand there with them, but they wouldn't know if they had the safety training or working at heights or concealed, all that. How can you tell? The credential just lets them in. And, at the end of the day, that's access control, in, out, in, out. The PIAM puts the compliance and the safety and that around it, but it automates and adds the intelligence. That's the key difference, the intelligence and automation that it brings. And that automation is the thing that has taken so long for people to appreciate. They don't realize how much, the C-levels of these corporations who are concerned about compliance and safety, they honestly don't have the time, most likely, to even consider that how much time it takes in badging and facilities to produce all these things, and then somehow tie them to the LMS system, learning management, and tie them to identity and all that. That's almost an impossible task. The PIAM solution comes in, and it's become very commoditized over the years because of RFPs and other people coming in the industry. And it's literally, we have a chevron diagram where it's step, 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 pretty much what I described before. And that's physical identity access management. It's just how it's complex. So it's how it's delivered is the key difference at that point.
So would you say then your sweet spot really is like large company, 10,000 or more employees in a somewhat to highly regulated industry? So like your pharmaceutical companies, mining companies, energy companies, folks like that?
Yeah, and look, we're into even higher education now. It used to be, and I'm obviously a long way removed from university, it was way easier to hang out in someone's dorm than it is today. You know what I mean? Now you have to get the permission from all the other people who live in the dorm to actually have a visitor into that dorm. It's got so much more complicated today than what it used to be. Healthcare. I had surgery 8 weeks ago on a broken hip, and my wife even today was able to walk into the hospital, walk through security. There wasn't even a check, and she was up on my floor, on the 8th floor, and she was able to come in and see if I was okay or not. But there was no security check. And sure, there is a bit of a security check, but if you look, generally like you know what you're doing or whatever else, and she is a nurse practitioner, so maybe they thought, but she was able to get there. That shouldn't happen. There's not just that concern anymore in just the super highly regulated industries. In the 30s in Australia, mining customers would kill 78 to 80 people a year in one company, and they've got that down to half a person. I think that's these stats are probably 10 years old now, but they got that down to like half a person because they put this. They had safety, zero harm was their mantra, and literally that was the first. You go to a meeting in a mining company, the first thing they talk about is safety, and it is drilled. But that has to come down through the layers of organisations so that the maturity of those organisations as they come up and realise how much this automation can add and the liabilities that they're faced by if they don't tackle these problems.
Well, and I think too, part of that is back in the day, and maybe I'm dating myself here, I'm a late millennial, but back in the day, it was all binders on a shelf. And there were no software systems that had any sort of able to be integrated, right? The best integration you could have is there's a copy of this SOP in this binder and that binder. Now you have all of these different learning management systems, your access control system, all of these different systems. And from the 90s to the early 2000s, traditionally those have been disparate systems.
Yep.
They each perform their own individual function, but it's only really now in the modern era that we can say, all right, well, what can we do to communicate with all of them at once? And that, I think, is where the real value comes in.
Correct, 100%.
Yeah, so what would you like people to know about RightCrowd in particular?
Look, we're a North American-based company. Most of our business is in North America today. We come from a ridiculously rigorous background in the mining space in Australia, but for many years that's what people thought of as RightCrowd. But we're in North America and Europe and other parts of the world, and we really help to drive that compliance and everything else. And you think about the software industry, forget about physical security a moment, the average software life is generally about 5 to 6 years.
That's it.
Now, our average customer is 9+ years. But there's a reason for that, because we go, over and beyond, and our delivery, look, I said to you before, we started with just one physical security system, because it's a really hard problem. It's not quantum physics, but it's along that line to actually hit multiple access control systems and keep all that in control. And you said that before, how do you normalize all these things?
Yeah.
Well, it isn't simple, but organizations do have normalized processes around compliance and safety around the world. And those things then help to manifest down to the physical security system. So we made sure that we got it right before we started evangelizing that we had the whiz-bang everything. So we wanted to be sure, and that's something we've built over 21 years. And really the last few years, we've really gone gangbusters with that next sort of layer of customer to really deliver for them the same sort of value that we deliver all the way up in the largest organizations in the world.
You're partnered with HID to a large degree in terms of being able to provision mobile credentials, and please don't get me wrong, they can provision credentials beyond HID, of course, but HID is a partnership.
Correct.
And I'm curious what that partnership means to a company like RightCrowd.
I sat down, and I won't name who it is, but I sat down with a guy who was part of the early days of HID, and he really gave us a history, over a couple of drinks of all of the background of HID and how it all came together and everything like that. Now, I'm telling that story because you guys are an old company. You go way back, and purely by that fact, you have a large, humongous install base around the world.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, for any customer who has a mobile-ready HID set of readers in their organization, it's a no-brainer. Like, that's where they go. And so for us, the value really lies that is a large install base. And so a lot of our customers, and we were talking to one earlier today, and there was like, yep, we have HID readers. So, it's a no-brainer at that point. And you're right, we do have other partners, and we support those partners. But if that's the sort of customer profile that it is, well, it's the way that we'll run, obviously. And for the customer, we really take away a lot of the complications around, the whole provisioning process, and then making sure we can get it into the physical security environment, which is a massive lift that they're not really thinking about. Because, yeah, you can go add to and add to wallet, and you can organize that, but does it have the access that it should align to it? Does it have compliance aligned to it? Does it have, all the onboarding and all of the ongoing stuff that are large organizations, and I was going to talk about before, data centers, and that's a big market for us.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so
for
data
sure. That's
centers,
highly regulated.
The number of audits they have, like we have one of the largest, a lot of the largest data center customers in the world, but one of them said to us the other day, they said, do you know how many audits we get a year? And you're thinking, I don't know, there's 52 weeks in the year. There's thousands of audits. Now you multiply that across the weeks. That means every day they're dealing with someone coming in and saying, why, tell me about the last week. Who's been in here? What were they regulated? Well, blah, blah, blah. And so all of that, all the racks, because obviously it's shared across
Sure.
many different people. Like it's you have no idea in these organizations what they're dealing with until you get in there. And that whole rigor that we can bring to the table, the automation, is something that if you don't have it, you can't possibly put your hand on your heart and say, we are doing everything for our end customers to make sure that, they're getting a compliant, safe, secure result.
Well said. Well, Darren, thank you so much for your time. If you'd like to learn more about RightCrowd, where can they find you?
Booth 30053 on the floor.
Yep.
We also have a stand in the AI pavilion as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And they're doing some pretty crazy, I'm unfortunately, I used to be a software engineer, but they're doing things like, hey, I want to get someone, I want to get Phil Coppler access to my London office, and the visit's created.
That's cool.
It's like,
that's really
drop
cool.
the microphone. That can't be happening.
And then rightcrowd.com?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great talking to you today.
Same.